Good morning, good afternoon, students, depending from where you are joining us from. I am Richa and welcome you to this PM in Focus webinar for March 2026 exams. So our session today, it is, as you can see on your registration page, it is focused on Examiner's Report Unlocked, and it will provide an in-depth exploration of essential exam support resources, which includes examiner report and also read the mind of the marker article. So you will also get practical exam technique tips and an opportunity to ask your question live, which I know you have already started. So TK has joined us today to deliver this informative session, drawing on his experience to provide valuable insights and a deeper understanding of the subject. TK is a CA and FCCA and also a member of ICAEW. He comes with more than 20 years of teaching experience and takes PM, FM, AFM, APM papers. Currently, he is also leading the Professional Accountancy Center of an Australian university based in Malaysia. You can always access the detailed profile of the tutor in speaker's bio section of your webinar page. So before I hand things over, I would quickly run through the housekeeping items. So at the bottom of your screen, there are a few buttons. The important ones are slide and media player icons, which you should select because that will you will need to view both of them throughout the webinar. Use attendee chat function to engage with fellow participants, but please avoid sharing any of your personal details there. Look for the icon that resembles like a file. Clicking on that, you will get an access to helpful study materials related to today's paper, today's webinar. That includes direct links also. Feel free to move things around on your screen and resize the window browser however you like. And if you cannot hear us at any moment or if you cannot see us, then please do refresh your browser. By registering for this webinar, you will get an email tomorrow with all the details on how to watch it again. So do not worry. In case you miss anything or you run into any technical issue, you will definitely be able to catch up with the recording later on. So I'm now going to hand over to TK in a moment and we'll be back with you towards the end of the session. And in the meantime, if you want to ask ACCA any question or TK any question, then please post them in Q&A box only. Just a quick note, we may not be able to respond everyone here individually, whether through chat or verbally, but we will do our best to share questions and answers that are helpful for everyone. Handing over to you, TK.
Thank you very much, Richa. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you who are joining in this InFocus webinar for PM March 2026 examination. The purpose of these sessions of the webinar is mainly to deliver key messages and advices to all about one thing: doing the right things in passing the PM examination. And of course, at the end of this webinar, once it is ended, you have to make sure to achieve the second task apart from hearing what I say, doing the right thing. It is your job, especially on the exam day, to do the things right. So only when these two elements combine well, you would see a great chances of clearing the challenging exam paper like PM. So what have I got to share with you in ensuring we know what are the right things to do from now until the exam day? So this is exactly what I'm going to share with all with the next 1 hour session. There are 3 crucial contact points that I would like to show you how to join them up to form a golden triangle. And whatever that you see in these 3 crucial points will tell you all the answers. What are the right things that you have to do? The first point, it's about the message from the examining team, the one who set the exam paper, the one who see the quality of answer from the students. Second, let's stand from the viewpoint of the people who mark your script, the marker. So they are the one who have the first hand to take a look at what students have done and what exactly they have produced for the marking team to grade the script of every individual candidate. The third point, obviously, is you yourself, with a bit of advice, suggestions from me, telling you what should you be doing on the exam day within the 3 hours and 15 minutes. So therefore, you can therefore look at the first part, starting with the first contact point, the examiner's insight, followed by going into the mindset of the marker. And finally, it is about the advices, suggestions from myself on how to improve the performances of the exam based upon crucial, valuable suggestions and inputs from examining team and the marker, especially telling you what are the things you need to do and what are the things you shouldn't be doing in exam. As long as you follow strictly on these two guides, trust me, your chances of getting through the exam in PM will be increasing significantly as comparing to many who do not really spend time to look at these two crucial parts of the information. Towards the end, I will leave about 15 minutes or so to address as many questions as I could from the Q&A box that you have leave your questions to us. Here we go. In order for you to start understanding what exactly the examining team have got to say, the answer is always never running away from examiner report. Now, give me a sign of why in the chat box, attendee chat, for those of you who really spend time in reading examiner report. Show me a why. Now, if you do not really spend time or you do not have the habit of reading examiner report, you can put an N in the attendee chat box. You may just respond as I'm going through now. If you are making use of examiner reports as part of your learning processes and material, put a Y in the attendee chat. Otherwise, put an N in the chat box. While waiting for your response, as a tutor, when I need to understand how students perform during the examination, apart from marking the script, apart from marking the work from the students, I need, as a tutor, to take a look at what examining team have got to say, because whatever that is in there, it tells us, tutor, especially you as a candidate, what exactly are the room for changes, for improvements? What are exactly the common area that the students are performing badly, and what are the common weaknesses area? Well, I can see from the chat box, thank you very much for an overwhelming response over here. I have a mixture of the response by giving an answer of why, which is good, and an answer of and, maybe at the end of this webinar, the first thing you may want to do while trying to refresh what we have been just sharing in this webinar is to download the most recent exam sitting of the examiner report on December 25. Go and take a look at what's in there. In a moment, I'm going to share with you some of the pull out crucial information that is really going to draw your attention. You want to know the full answer from the examining team, please download the examiner report. Spend some time to go through that. Trust me, you definitely will get valuable feedback for changes and improvement. I'm quite sure some of us here who may have attempted this exam in the past, unfortunately, it wasn't successful. So if you are looking forward for another chance to give a try in the upcoming exam in March, you definitely wanted to find out, I need to attempt this exam paper in a different way, comparing to what you used to do in the previous attempt, which were not so successful. So have you got a clue what need to be changed? To me, the more changes you discover, the more changes that you found out about what you have been doing in the past, the chances of improvement, the chances of passing would definitely increase significantly. Try not to have the feeling whereby whatever you're going to do in the upcoming exam is pretty much the same as what you have been doing in the past. Well, that is not something that you want to have if, for those of you who did not succeed in the previous attempt of the exam. So you need to look up for advices for changes, advices for improvements. Now, allow me to just point out some of the crucial part of information from the examiner report, especially for those of you who have not really spent time in going through for this particular crucial document. Now, what you see in this report is obviously the feedback, the comments from the examining team based upon questions that is found under the 3 sections of this exam paper in September, December 25. Now, you can see as a result of that, the section A comprises of 15 multiple choice questions, which is standalone. And out of that, more than 20% of that, which is four selected MCQ, will be published and discussed in the report. Now, what makes up the examining team in selecting these 4? And the answer, obviously, these are the 4 MCQ where they found performances among the students are relatively weak and poor. So guys, this is the source of the practices for all of you who are going for the upcoming exam, where you couldn't find the source of the practice questions in practice platform or any of the publisher, but you only will get it from examiner report. Imagine they have about 10 over set of examiner report in the ACCA resources, multiplied by 4 questions. You have close to 30 over additional MCQ, the real challenging one. Where else do you find this kind of the real and valuable practice questions apart from going through the practice platform? And the answer is examiner report. And obviously, you also will get to see some commentary based upon the selected questions in section B. As you may know, there are 3 multitask questions based on 3 standalone cases. One of it will be selected and presented in the report. And for both the questions in section C, commentary and advices are found in this report. Let's dive down what exactly you can discover from that. Guys, this is one of the sample of one of the MCQ that found out in one of the exam sitting in last year of the examination. Now, if you take a look at the questions on the top left, take a look at the requirement. What do you notice? This MCQ looks a little different comparing to a typical PM questions. Do you agree with me? Most MCQs which ask for calculation in PM is normally pertaining to things like determine cost, determine profit, determine revenue, or deriving some of the KPIs. Whereas this indicator is requiring the students to calculate, to estimate equity. At the first glance, don't you think this questions looks like a financial management questions, FM exam? Well, indeed, this is actually a questions that found in PM. So many students will get surprises in their exam setting where they saw these questions over here. Am I at the right paper? Now you see it yourself in the examiner report. It is indeed found in the syllabus of PM exam. After going through the attempt to find out the answer for this, you will then realize why is examining team setting such a questions. And the answer is, if you take a look at information given above, they provide you, besides some financial data, they also provide you some financial KPI. Guys, KPI, particularly financial performance indicator, is part of the syllabus of PM. So naturally, this questions is obviously pertaining to performance indicator, except they are not asking to calculate performance indicator, but they are expecting the students to be able to use the formula to derive the performance indicator to go backwards, to find out something that is embedded in the calculations of performance indicator. So this is exactly how the questions is telling me something. Hey, in PM, you may be getting such kind of the surprises in any part of the questions. Anyway, by spending some time to go through the steps of deriving the answer, I think this is something that is worth learning for enhancing your technical knowledge for improvement purpose. Now, instead of going into section B questions, which is pretty much the same as section A, I would like to draw your attention on something that many students would always puzzle and worry, the questions in section C. The constructive response questions whether it is the first or the second questions in section C, one of the major challenge, one of the key weakness, I would say, among many students in PM, it's starting with failure to understand what the questions really wanted. So guys, the first rule in improving your quality of answer, to improve your performances in attempting section C questions in PM, is to first improve our ability to understand what the questions really want. Take for instance, if I pick up the following questions, K-Land company, which is one of it that found in one of the exam sitting. If you go through the practice platform, you take a look at the full questions of this K-Land company, you will notice this questions is pertaining to CVP analysis, cost volume profit analysis. Again, in this examiner report, instead of producing the full questions, they published the requirement. Now, this is exactly what I would like to draw your attention. If you take a look at part A of the requirement, how are we supposed to improve our ability to understand what exactly the question is asking? You should know, first, try to pick up the verb. Second, try to observe the wording that come after the verb. When the question asks to calculate, you have to ask, what is it to calculate? When the question asks to discuss, you have to ask, what is there to discuss? Verb, followed by the task that you have to respond. The third wording that is very crucial is and, A-N-D. It is very likely when you go through a requirement, you're bound to see something, something, and something, something. When you see an and, that means there are two responses that you need to provide in your answer. Try to build this kind of habit to ensure you clearly and fully understand what exactly the task is all about here. Now, let's try to read through this requirement. Now, again, in the case, any one of us who couldn't see this message clearly, go back, download these examiner reports on September, December 25, you can see this clearly. The first task is asking to calculate. Now, you go through further, you will notice that what is there to calculate? You will notice there are two main set of figures that you have to calculate. The first one is the CS ratio for each of the three modules. Do you see the keyword, the magic word, and? Go further. It's another CS ratio. So the difference is that the first CS ratio is for each of the three modules. So there will be three set of figures I have to show. And then followed by the other CS ratio, there's only one CS ratio, which is the weighted average CS ratio. So altogether, there are four numbers that I have to provide in answering for part A. So this is exactly how I visualize the answer I have to provide once I know how to read the instructions and pick up the task carefully. Anyway, let's take a look at what examining team have got to say. Now, do you notice that there is one of the rare message that found in this requirement? It normally doesn't appear in the previous attempt of the exam, but it appeared in this set of the exam paper, which is the footnote. Please keep an eye and read what is in the footnote. It is about the requirement to show your answer to certain decimal places. And take a look at what examining team have said. Many students did not follow instruction. The questions already highlighted. Make sure showing your answer to 3 decimal places. Imagine if you're showing your answer up to 2 decimal or 1 decimal or even 4 decimal places. What is the consequences? You may have lose out certain marks that you would have earned, obviously. So these are exactly the weaknesses that many students were just like letting go the marks too easily by not able to follow instruction. So that is exactly what we call do the right things. Let's go on. If you take a look at part B of these questions, again, the task is based upon the verb calculate. So what is it to calculate? Margin of safety. Now, many of the students, when they see the word margin of safety, the first thing in the mind, I have to present my answer in sales quantity. or sales value. Whereas what you have to do in fact is that calculate margin of safety as a percentage. You need to convert this figure. Instead of showing the figure in sales quantity or sales value, you have to turn it into percentage, meaning you have to take the amount of the margin of safety compared to the base. And what's the base? The current amount of revenue, obviously. So this is exactly the instructions that you have to make sure follow exactly what they say in order to prevent from the loss of the mark. Do you notice that the words in block letter and here come another task? Now, I'm sure many students, when they deal with the narrative questions in section C, I think this is one of the areas that rather many students will get worried. How are we supposed to make sure whatever we write, we should be able to hit the bullseyes to make sure that we get the mark? Well, first of all, pick up the verb. Secondly, read the task carefully. Now, take for instance, you are asked to explain the implications of margin of safety percentage for the company. Is the question trying to tell you, please explain what is the meaning of margin of safety? Many students will start defining margin of safety. Is that the way? No, it isn't. It is asking you how exactly that this margin of safety would mean to the company. So you have to relate to the company by telling them, looking at the margin of safety, what does it mean to us? So in other words, your answer has to turn into application. Remember, whenever you see the name of the company mentioned in the requirement, your answer, your narrative answer must come with application. It is nowhere that your answer comes from books. Keep that in your mind. Well, same thing apply for part C1, where we are asked to, based on the current selling price, to calculate the revenue required for the company in achieving the target profit. Well, another keyword's coming in, and so here comes another task. Discuss. Learn how to improve your ability to understand what the question is asking. Discuss the feasibility of the profit target. What does it mean? You are not just supposed to interpret the finding. You're supposed to tell the marketing team, do you think this profit target is achievable? Is it achievable? If you say yes, I need to know why do you say so. If you say no, it is not achievable, why do you think so? So your reasoning has to come from the background story of the questions. So guys, go back, improve your answer planning based upon the wording in the requirement and start expanding your imagination to craft the answer plan before you start producing your answer by creating and typing up your own answer. So remember, it is important for you to have an answer plan. Same thing goes for part C2 as well. So these are therefore what the examining team have mentioned to the candidates in that exam sitting, and this is what they found. And you can see the messages like simply just restating the answer, simply just reiterate what exactly the figures say, earn no marks because that doesn't really answer the questions that it's asking. You have to take a step forward. So this is exactly the kind of mindset, the kind of answering habit you need to bring in to answer all narrative questions, especially where the questions come with the name of the company. Well, here comes the last requirement where you are asked to talk about 2 limitations on such analysis for planning and decision making. Guys, comparing this requirement with that of the earlier one, what do you notice? This time, do you notice there is no name mentioned on the company? What does it mean? When a requirement did not include any name of the company, this is the questions where you can rely on the answer from books. But it didn't mean that you just have to memorize and reproduce what the books say. You still have to go back to take a look at what exactly the questions is asking, especially the verb. Discuss 2 limitations. By merely listing out point 1, limitation 1, point 2, limitation 2, without further articulation, it's still considered a failure answer. So this is exactly what examining team says. You need to further articulate for every limitation, for every assumptions in the CVP analysis, even though there is no need to apply to relate to the scenario as mentioned. You still need to further articulate. Anyway, I think this is good enough for you to understand what examining team have got to say to you as a candidate. Now, it's time for you to understand the other key point from this time, the one who mark your script, the one who grade your script. Reading the mind of the marker is as equally important as reading the mind of examining team. In order for you to really understand what marker is looking for when they are grading the answers from the students, go back to the ACCA resources and under PM, pick the item, exam technique. Go in there, you will see ranges of resources. Now, what I would like to draw your attention is particularly the first one, read the mind of the marker, followed by approaching the constructed response questions, which is section C in PM. This is a further advice and suggestions given by examining team. Finally, the top tips from the exam team. Now, may I know, how many of us here actually have made use of these three resources before going for exam in any exam paper? If you are already using these resources, can you put a 1 in the attendee chat? Those of you who haven't really made use of these resources, can you put a 2 in the attendee chat? I'm looking at the chat box now. Those of you who have been looking at this, reading through this thoroughly, put a 1. Those of you who haven't, put a 2. Well, I can see more than half are actually using this, which is fantastic. But I still see quite a number of us haven't. So please remember, at the end of this webinar, please go to accaglobal.com, go into performance management, and go into exam technique. And click there, you will see all these resources. Please, trust me, you will see differences in your performance in the upcoming exam if you really spend time reading through this document. Now, let me show you what exactly the first document is so valuable and so crucial to you in preparing your upcoming exam. There is one of the real exam questions by the name Sports Company. And this is exactly what the questions is asking in part A1, calculate ROI for the division. A2, we have to discuss the performance of the two divisions, obviously, based upon the result that we have calculated. And also, we have to explain the impact, the differences in the ROI that could have on the motivational behavior to the manager of the division. Now, I suppose that if you look at part A2, the one that is rather straightforward to answer, it's the first part. But the one that is rather challenging is the second part. But trust me, I think to many students, both parts of this requirement are equally challenging. Why is that so? Because it is just simply because it is narrative in nature comparing to part A1. Now, if you go further, you will see part B. The task is about calculate RI, residual income, followed by commenting on the result. And of course, lastly, we have to talk about the good and bad, and this is the favorite questions of many students, the good and bad of using RI. Many of us thought explain the good and bad of something, we just have to list out in point form, which is not true at all. If you just list out the point in a point form manner, you are not responding to this verb correctly. The examining team is asking you to explain. You are supposed to further develop. Tell me, what is it all about on this limitation? You have to go further, go deeper. Then only the marks will go to your answer. So this is exactly the skills that you have to learn. It is about the skill of storytelling. Now, in short, this is how the questions looks like. Now, definitely, we're not here in the positions to glance through and discuss the productions of the answer for these questions. But generally, you can see this is the background story of the company, talking about the nature of the division. And then we are given profit and loss on the performances for the two divisions, followed by some additional point pertaining to the financial data in responding to the requirements that we saw a moment ago. And now, what I want to draw your attention by spending time to read the marker's mind, is that in this document, it shows you two candidates' answer. Candidate 1, candidate 2. Now take a look at the following. This is how candidates 1 answer looks like. When these candidates present the calculations of ROI, what I like a lot about this candidate 1 is that he or she is having a courtesy of presenting the calculation even though the response option is word processor. Do you notice this candidate is using the table to present the figure? Now you must be wondering, where are we creating this table? And the answer is make use of this icon. And this is exactly what many students are not realizing, particularly when the questions involve calculation, but then the response option is word processor instead of Excel. Learn how to use the table to construct, to present your working, and show your answer systematically. Not only that, once you have found the figure, you are supposed to discuss the performances. Take a look at what this candidate is doing. Division C, payday, and then it start going into further narration. You can take a look at the report in detail by downloading these articles or these documents after this webinar. The first line that these candidates mention is to interpret the figure. Do you think the figure is good or bad? The second one is these candidates dive down to tell why is it good, why is it bad. Guys, it is the second paragraph that earn you marks. The second paragraph, however, is the one that many students fail to develop. Many students indeed only stop the answer at the first line, and that is not enough. So this is exactly the learning resources for you to really see how exactly you can further develop your quality of the answer. Same thing applied for division E. You can see as a result, these answers are fairly well developed. And if you want to know what exactly is the message and the comments from the marking team, here we go. Spend some time to scroll further down to read note 1. And this is exactly what marker have said. Guys, this is now an answer from another candidate, candidate 2. What do you notice this time? The answer for the calculation shown by this candidate is not in table, even though the second one is in table. Even it is in table, do you notice that the narration, the labeling for each of the figure is unclear? What do you expect the marker to do? Is the marker going to guess what this figure is supposed to be? That is simply not marker friendly. At one glance, therefore, how do you see the quality of the answer in terms of calculation? Obviously, the first candidate showed a better one. In terms of the narration, take a look. There's only one line. So, are you performing your answer in the past in this manner? If yes, then take a look at the marks. The marks for the commentary for candidate 1 is almost and nearly full mark, whereas the candidate 2 is nearly 0 mark. And that shows how vast is the difference on the mark that you get in terms of the depth and the breadth of the quality of the narrative answer. Well, after looking at what the examining team and the marking team have got to say, now is the time for you to listen from my advices for some practical exam technique. Well, my advice for you in dealing with section A and B for the multiple choice questions is always following the steps to deal with every of the MCQ. First and foremost, always pick up and understand the requirement. Instead of reading the storyline from the beginning, go straight and read the requirement. Then analyze the scenario, if especially it comes with figure. Then select the answer wisely. Remember, if you are dealing with numerical multiple choice questions, make sure write down your working in the full scrap papers given during the exam. You need to leave your audit trail in order for you to do cross-checking. Once you have get it done, if you still have time at the end, you want to come back, always go back to your audit trail. Do not just use your financial calculator. Do not just punch the calculator on the on-screen calculator or the calculator to derive the figure without leaving your written evidence. Always make it a habit. Leave your working in the written notepad provided. So this is exactly how you save time for you to do cross-checking later on. When you are dealing with Section C questions, this is exactly what many students always want to know. What are we supposed to do? First thing first, read the requirement as usual. This is exactly the practice you need to do. Then go through the storyline, analyze the scenario, try to pick up important clues, particularly those clues that come in narrative nature. Do not think all the information given is just for appearance. Don't just think those informations are simply given without any reason. In fact, you should think in this manner. Every sentence that you saw in the storyline, it has something beneath. It has some clue waiting for you to explore, waiting for you to connect and show into your answer. When you think in this manner, naturally, your application skill will get a lot better and stronger. So, to put it in a nutshell, what exactly are the suggestions I have for all to have an effective presentations of the exam answer, particularly in Section C? When you're dealing with narrative questions, guys, these are the do's, these are the don'ts. Do you see candidate 1? How many marks the candidate 1 score on the narrative questions in part A2? What makes this candidate 1 score so well? Well, you will notice that the candidate 1 is using signposts. It is using the signpost, in other words, using heading to highlight to the marketing team what exactly that you're talking about. Then only you dive down. Make sure every paragraph that you develop must be fully articulated and fully developed up to the complete content that you want to address on this point. Do not just leave your answer halfway through. A good example is a typical questions in Section C is a performance measurement questions that you may either be asked to calculate the KPI or the KPI is provided to you and you are supposed to tell what do you see about the KPI. Remember, a commentary answer for KPI in dealing with performance measurement is far more than just writing to tell the marker the revenue has grown from so much to so much. The revenue growth has increased from 5% to 8%. This kind of writing skill earn no marks in a narration. You have to add on and say the revenue growth rate has accelerated. The revenue growth rate has shown an uptrend, mainly due to. The due to is the reason that you must pick it up from the storyline. Take a look at what has happened in the company. Take a look at what has the company do. What are the decisions? What are the changes? What are the efforts the management team have done? Use your imagination. Connect those actions into this figure. When you see the connection, you need to write this connection into your answer. That makes up an in-depth analysis. You have to say, the revenue has shown an uptrend in the growth rate, mainly explained by the effectiveness of an aggressive expansion strategy of launching a new product in the market. So this is how I use my commercial sense to connect this action will lead to the growth in the revenue. That is exactly how you fully articulate a point for performance measurement questions. Make sure every paragraph try only contain one point of your articulation. Do not cram 2 or 3 points of finding into one paragraph. The marketing team may have overlooked the rest of the point. Keep that in mind. As a result, try to avoid the following: using jargons. Try to avoid waffling, to just going around the bush, but there isn't any substance in there. What we want to see is substance. So therefore, a well-planned answer should be like what candidate 1 showed. It come in heading, it come in paragraph. Every paragraph, it come with 1 point. Now, again, if time permits, try to avoid writing a point from answer. If time permits, unless in the state of emergency, when you are running out of time, there's still a few more minutes left, don't give up. Keep moving. How to keep moving? Try to write in a point form answer, but be prepared. The marks you get is not full. Maybe you get 1 mark out of 3 or 4 points that you write. That 1 mark may make a difference between 49 and 50. But again, when time permits, never write the answer in point form. In terms of numerical questions, when you're dealing with the calculation, remember, when the response options given is a spreadsheet, then you can show your calculations easily in a spreadsheet. Show the step, particularly when the calculations are complex one. You need to show the step instead of putting all the calculations in one shot. Write down the step, narrate the item in the step. This is exactly what markers would appreciate a lot. However, in the event, you saw it just now, that if numerical questions come with narration and the response option is in a word processor, use the table function. Even though you couldn't use the Excel functionality, you still have to use the calculator, at least present your figure in the table manner. Well, that is exactly what you have to do. Should, in an unlikely event, if you need to make any assumption to make up your figure, go ahead, state your assumptions clearly. So try to prevent the following bad habit in dealing with numerical questions. Just write the answer without showing the working. That is a no-no. And remember, when you deal with the numerical questions, when you get stuck, when you are unsure on certain answer, don't worry, keep moving, using the wrong answer and keep moving, because as long as the rest of the steps are done correctly, you will still get the full credit. This is exactly what we call own figure rules. Well, in short, the key takeaways for you to maximize the chances of passing this challenging exam paper is your mindset. Everything starts with the mindset. You've got to start believing in yourself that I can make it. I can get through this challenging paper. So to do that, you have to stay calm, you have to stay disciplined, you have to stay rational. But of course, there's one more thing that will make these things naturally come into your mind and attitude. That is when you are fully prepared. I cannot believe, I cannot imagine how a candidate will stay calm if it is not fully prepared. Do you agree with me? You will naturally stay calm, disciplined, and rational, provided you are fully prepared. What do you mean by fully prepared? You have covered the entire syllabus of PM. You have practiced as many questions as you can. You have spent time to read through the articles. You have spent time in watching the topic explainer video. Those are called fully prepared candidates. All these mindset will come naturally. And then during the exam, as I mentioned a moment ago, keep swimming. Don't let it stop. Don't give up. Exam strategy, I think everyone should know. Easy mark comes first. Pick up all the low-hanging fruits. And these are obviously some of the tips for your low-hanging fruits. Section A and B, if you have a single response multiple choice questions, whether it is narrative or numerical, attempt these questions in no time pressure in order to increase the chances of picking the right selection. For section C, you saw this a moment ago. Any narrative questions that without mentioning the name of the company, you don't even have to read the story. You can write the answer directly from your technical knowledge, but you have to fulfill the verb that is in use. So these are the low-hanging fruits that you never want to let go. Do these questions properly under no time pressure. That will increase the chances of passing. Well, anyway, these are all about the tips on the highlights, about the three main points that joined together will give you a lot of insight on how exactly that you should change your exam strategy and exam preparation from now until exam in March. Okay, now it's time for me to take on as many questions as I can over there. So first of all, I would like to turn my attentions to look at the Q&A box where my colleagues already have pulled up, I think, some of the interesting Q&A that I have over here in the box. Well, first and foremost, let me just start with the one that have left some of the questions when we started off the webinar. Some of us asked, could you tell us what exactly are the topic that normally appear in section C? I suppose that this is a very common question that asked in PM. My suggestion is, rule number one, never topic spot. Never learn by spotting. Always make sure you cover the whole syllabus. And if you want to know what exactly are the questions that appear in section C, now honestly speaking, the answer is found in the syllabus and study guide. My colleague already has posted that document in the link below. So please go and download that. Read it. Examining team is setting the questions based on that guideline. You want to know what will come up in section C, the answer is in the document. Okay, now here comes the next questions I have. If we use IRR, the formulas to derive the rate is given. Should we still use the working for the formula at the first place? I suppose that you are asking this for FM, not PM. There is no calculations on IRR for PM. But in case, if you are asking the similar questions on some other calculations that require certain kind of technical formula that is found in the spreadsheet, you can use the functionality in the spreadsheet, like IRR, NPV. Those are the formula that is found in the functionality of the spreadsheet. But I'm telling you, in PM, it hardly come with those kind of calculation where the functionality is already found in the spreadsheet for the formula. Most calculation in PM, you need to remember the formula, you need to present the working with the formula. So that, I hope, answer your question. So remember, IRR is not in PM calculation. The other one, how to manage the constructed response questions on performance measurement. Yeah, this is exactly what I have spent some time to elaborate, especially on the narrative part. How are we supposed to analyze the finding and the figure? Remember, always think about, do not just narrate on the surface to tell people what has gone up, what has come down. You always have to ask yourself, what make the figure increases? What make the figure decreases? You always want to know the root cause. Should the questions asked further and say, comment on the performances and try to evaluate the likely impact on the behavior of the manager, you need to highlight two parts. The first part, root cause. What make the figure goes up or down? Go back to the storyline. Then you have to ask, when the figure goes up or down with this incident, how will these incidents affect the behavior of the manager? Put yourself in the shoe of the manager. Put yourself in the shoe of the person. You will be able to understand how will that particular action affect my behavior. Common sense. As a human being, we always wanted that as long as I have tried my best, I want my superior, I want my company to see what I have been doing. If I am trying my very best to do my job, I want people to see my effort so that I will feel recognized, I will feel motivated, I will feel I want to do better more. Unfortunately, a lot of questions are set in such a way because of the mechanism, because of the system in place of the company, it somehow or rather will hinder whatever effort, whatever intentions the management has. It just got hindered. It just got hid away because of the mechanism. When you see these kind of the tricks, when you see these kind of the weaknesses, put it down. Now, this is exactly the in-depth thinking skill you need to develop in dealing with PM. And again, how do you train up this kind of thinking skill? Go back. Pick up any section C questions. Do not just read the storyline like before. After reading a sentence, try asking yourself, what exactly is behind the scene? What exactly is the question trying to tell us? If the question say, this company has two profit center, division A and B. When you see this sentence, what goes to your mind? This company has two profit center, division A and B. What do you have? In my mind, I need to know, why is the examining team tell me that A and B is a profit center? Why can't they say cost center? Why can't they say investment center? They tell me profit center because the examining team want me to know what exactly the manager of the division is responsible for. They are responsible for revenue and cost, but nothing else. Do you see? This is what we call an in-depth thinking. You must be able to pick up the keyword. From the keyword, you think a step further. This is exactly the thinking skill you need to develop in PM, particularly dealing with section C. Okay, so I hope that that answers your questions, yeah? Another question I have, this is the third we see in March. Yeah, you got a marginal fail. You got a marginal fail of 48, 49. I suppose that this is not the only case that you are facing. There's so many candidates are at the marginal borderline. Well, ask yourself, why couldn't you get another extra mark to get a pass? Rule number one, did you leave any part unattempted in section C? Rule number two, take a look at the section C. Did you just simply write a point form answer in section C instead of fully developed? The third one is when you deal with the multiple choice questions in section A and B, especially did you take chance to ensure you pick the right choice on the single response questions? These are the easy one. You should never let it go. Try to make sure easy mark, as mentioned a moment ago, grab hold of it. You may then cross over by getting 1 or 2 more marks over there, particularly the easy mark in section C. What is that? Requirement that do not come with the name of the company. Grab hold of those marks. And then, in terms of the calculation, are you making use of the own figure rule? Keep moving. Do not just think about, I get stuck in the calculation. Now, apart from the questions you saw a moment ago on CVP, another one that perhaps students will get stuck is variances calculation. We have to calculate sales mix variance, yield variance. I got stuck in certain item. Don't worry. If I do not know how to get the figure right on certain item, let's say, for example, I do not know how to get standard mix based on actual input, standard mix based on actual usage, just give a try. It is okay to be wrong. As long as you remember the formula, you just keep moving. Somehow or rather, you will be able to earn some other marks at the later part of the working. So that will hopefully push you just 1 or 2 more marks to reach the passing line. Well, I suppose I will have time to take 2 more questions over there. How do we show the working in section C for numerical questions? Well, guys, if you take a look at the Read the Marker Minds document, take a look at candidate 1. That will be a good sample of showing you how to present the calculations in dealing with numerical questions on section C. Remember, you need to make sure that marker, when they look at your end figure, they need to know how do you get to derive that figure? What exactly is the processes that you have gone through to derive the figure? This is exactly the step you need to let the marker know, because should your end result is wrong, the marker have to go back to your working and find ways to award you. If you do not show the step, the marker have no idea how do you derive the figure, which is wrong. So you would have just lose out the chance to earn some marks in your working. Remember, the advice for you to show the working is to show the step in sequence, okay, with the narration. As I say, go back and refer to candidate 1 in the Read the Mind of the Markers document. You will know that one, okay? Other than performance management chapter, which other chapter cover nearly 60 marks of the questions in the exam? Well, I only can say, try not to have this kind of mindset on the questions or topic spot. Try to cover the full syllabus. That is the best I can say to you. Okay, so maybe I can just take on 1 more questions before I pass it over to Richard. What is the meaning of answer to the nearest sense? Put it in simple. This is about the rounding instructions. Okay, if I remember, there isn't such a question that asks you to show the answer to the nearest sense, but you will see the questions that ask you to round to the nearest dollar. If in case you are talking about what if I'm asking for cents, this means you're going for 2 decimal place of the dollar, $1.23. So that is called nearest cents. Okay, so learn how to follow instructions on the rounding. As you saw a moment ago, this is exactly what may come up again in the upcoming examination. And maybe I just pick one more. Yeah, some students ask how to improve drafting the answer for balanced scorecard and building block model. Remember, when you get this kind of questions, very likely the questions will provide you the template. You don't need to craft the answer from scratch. But in the unlikely event, but Mr. Chan, I don't have the guideline, I don't have the template, I perhaps need to craft. Then you will just start with the heading. In balanced scorecard, if the questions ask you to assess the performance of the company with the balanced scorecard, make sure show your answer in four perspective of the heading, then come with the KPI followed by commentary. So you're going to have four segments of the answer. Building block, I don't think in PM you will get a full questions that ask you on talk about standard, talk about dimension, talk about reward. If you get this, you will still have the three headings over there. Put your attention more on dimension. This is the one that questions usually were heavily focusing, asking you for the commentary, looking at each and every dimension. So use the heading to structure your answer. Well, I hope I have answered as many questions as I could with the time that we have now. So I will pass the floor back to Richard. Richard, over to you.
Thank you, TK. You really showed the time management to students today. I hope they would have definitely find the session very interesting, and it has been really very engaging when I look into the kind of the questions that are coming in, and you have really covered well almost all important questions from there. That's really great. Thank you so much. So with this, students, we come to an end of today's webinar. But before we leave, I would like to remind you about three important exam resources, which though you already know, but still it is always good to keep reminding of the good things. So one is ACCA practice platform. When we talk about mock practice, exam practice, then this is the platform which will really help you with your exam practice. And secondly, and you already know that mocks are already live. They were live from 6th of February, and now today mock debriefs have gone live. So our second resource mentioned on your screen is YouTube channel ACCA Study Resources. We have all our debriefs available now on YouTube channel. You can look into the exam paper playlists to get your debriefs, and also there is the mock debrief page link in your resource section also. And the last not the least, ACCA Study Hub. Definitely this is the storehouse of all your important exam resources, exam reads, and also it contains all the quizzes, all important questions which you can look into, which you can practice. Take the question from there, go to the practice platform, practice it into workspaces, and you are done. So I know you must have been very busy with your exam preparation, but please do not forget to practice for your exams towards the last week of this month, in fact. Yes. Okay, so with this, we come to the end, and thank you so much, TK, for your lovely presence and the session delivery to the students, and also to the team which is at the back end helping us answering the questions, moving them to TK, and looking and also helping us with the platform also. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the students. All the best for your exam preparations, exam practice, and exam uptake. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Have a good luck, everyone. All the best.